How's it going, everybody? Moose here. We are in my garage again. It's the February 28th, 2021. Hopefully the video that I did yesterday for installing the stainless steel PEM traction dynamics, the seat bolts, and the rear key access tab cheater went all right. I didn't really show a whole lot of install, just basic ideas, showed you where I was on the install and certain little things that I did. Today, I'm going to do my oil change I spoke about yesterday in the video. And as I said, you can find a really good video from WingStuff.com, I think. It's on YouTube. I'll link it right here. That shows you a really close-up idea of how to do the oil change, bolts, and different things like that, and some little tips and tricks. I'm going to show you just a few things here real quick. I'm going to change my oil because I don't really see any reason to redo that video just to... Well, maybe it'll get out there. Maybe we'll redo the video. Hell with it. Maybe it'll be one more video out there for people to look at. I hopefully have some lighting here that I can use underneath to light up the project. I got my GoPro. I got my Insta360 camera. I got my wireless mic. I got the stuff we're going to need of the trade. Let's go through that real quick. My fat ass on the video. So, I got an oil pan. I know. It's made by Harley Davidson. It's what I had before. Oh. By the way, when you're running the bike to get it warm, because I didn't take it for a ride. I know you're supposed to, but I usually start it up, let it warm up so the oil gets warm. Don't forget that you're working on a Honda and not a Harley Davidson, because I put my hand underneath to put the oil thing underneath there, and I forgot that Honda has exhaust pipes right here that Harley doesn't. I touched that damn thing and burnt my hand pretty good. But anyway, so we got an oil pan. We got an oil filler right here that we'll need a little later. A paper towel, magnet, ratchet with 17 millimeter on it, and a little extension. The oil filter cup for the oil filter. A little stubby screwdriver just in case I need to get the transmission cover off. Ratchet with 12 millimeter socket on it for the oil bolts. A 1/4 inch ratchet with an 8 millimeter socket on it for the transmission cover filter, which is this little filter right here. I got the Honda oil filter, 3 crush washers for the bolts. There are 3 drain plugs in a Honda Goldwing, and an O-ring if we need it for the seal that the cover from this covers. And I got some pliers here because last time I had trouble getting this little filter out with a magnet, which is, by the way, is a magnet. This is a Blackstone Laboratory oil analysis kit. I'll go through that here in a minute. Got 5 quarts of AMSOIL in the form of SAE 10W30, which is Honda recommended thickness and weight. I love AMSOIL, so that's what I use. And I got brake clean, just to clean some oil mess when I get done. And if I want, I got some rubber gloves, because this is one messy oil change. And all that. So let's go through real quick. Let's go through this Blackstone Laboratories kit. I'll show you what you get in here. All right, so real quick, Blackstone Laboratories, and you can find their link down below that I'll put that you can get this. You can order this oil kit. It's free to order. They'll send you 1 or 2, whatever you want, I think. And you pay basically when you use it. So I believe it's $25 to have the oil analysis done, the basic one. And it comes with free postage, no postage necessary. A little jar to put the, basically this encapsulates where the oil is put. So it's able to be put right through the mail. You can ship oil because it's not really flammable at a certain flash point. So the oil goes in here, little plastic container, and that has a screw top on it. You have a plastic bag to put this container into. A little slip where you fill out your credit card information, bike model, mileage on oil, mileage on bike, and so forth. And one nice thing about this, if you record it right and you do it, when you get the report back from them, which I'll show you real quick on my phone here in a minute, it'll actually show you what mileage you wrote down when you changed it. So it's also a good way to keep track of what mileage you did your oil changes on. Then you also have a piece of this oil, the stuff that soaks up oil. It's fabric. Use it in shops. You wrap this around the bottle when you put it inside the thing. That way, if it comes loose, it'll soak up the oil. then you don't get it in the mail. So that's what comes in the bottle, and there's also a sticker just in case you do something on a car and you want to fill it out. I don't use it on the bike. But that's what's in the kit, and we will use that because I always catch some oil. I almost always send it in. I did it on my Harley. It gives you a sense of, it makes you feel good, you know, and you get it back and say, everything's really good on it. Okay, cool. I made a mistake last time I sent it in and wrote down I had AMSOIL on the bike. And at that time, the bike actually had Honda oil in it. So hold on a second, I'll pull up a report real quick so you can see what you're dealing with. Pull one up on my Harley or something. So basically, you get an email, little PDF file down there. Click on the PDF file. All right, so there, you open up the PDF file they send you. You name it what you want to name it so you can keep track of it, especially if you have multiple vehicles. But it tells you every little thing you could think of, and it basically tells you an overall of how the bike's doing. Like when I had my Harley, the Harley continues to wear well, and that was on the, I think that was on a 40,000 mile, that was on a 7,000 mile trip Mike and I took. So, you know, it's a good oil. It tells you all the different metals in it, what the containment should be, what it would be on a regular bike. It tells you if it's wearing faster or equally to other bikes around. There's a lot of good information in here. So it's something that it costs about 25 bucks. Don't need to do it every time if you don't want to, but you know, it's nice every once in a while, so why not? All right, so basically what you have here is the Honda Goldwing 2018 Plus has 3 drain plugs on it. So basically you have to remove all 3 drain plugs. So you got one here. This is the front of the engine. Your oil filter is, I don't know if you can see it, but your oil filter is right here. Let me show you here. There's your oil filter, okay? So come back right from the oil filter, and you'll find a drain plug here. That's one. One here, all right? Right behind it, one's vertical on the side, one's like this. So basically what you have is one's kind of laying on the side, the other one's straight up and down right in the front. Oil filter, side bolt, bottom bolt. Then if you go to the back, then you have one more bolt in the back. And it's right here. And it's also straight up and down, also a 12 millimeter. And that's right near, if you can see it, right here is your transmission filter cover, which has 2 8mm bolts in it. One there, one there. And that's where you hide your transmission filter. You notice the thicker part here on the bolt cover here? That's the exhaust pipe right there. So that's where that goes. Now it's a little dirty, but so you got your engine bolt here. Let's see if I can get an outward view. So if you want to say whereabouts that is, here is the first up and down one right here. First up and down one's right here, and there's the other one right here in the back. So that's kind of distance you're dealing with. So you want to pull those out and drain your oil. It's usually a good idea to have your engine warm. Actually, the best thing you can do is have it, take it for a ride, but I didn't want to take it out today because the roads are still salty around me. It is nice enough where I probably could ride, but so what I did instead is I warmed the bike up, which again is how I ended up burning myself. Using a 12mm ratchet, I'm going to take that first bolt free. Okay, so that's loosed. Move the oil pan for a minute. I'm going to do the second one here. Loosen that one up. Move the oil pan back under. And I'm going to try to also capture my oil while I'm doing this. So I'm going to try to do this without getting oil on my camera. I don't think I've ever seen an oil change yet that wasn't messy, so you're going to get oil on yourself. Just deal with it. Doing your own maintenance, that's one of those things that's going to happen. Like I said, there's not much of a way around it. Chances are you're going to get oil on yourself. It's going to be slippery. But, you know, that's just the way it goes. And it didn't do you any favors either by making it easy to get to. Even on a lift, this is not exactly simple. Also, when you want to try to catch your own oil. Fill the oil thing up. Okay. Like I said, I'm getting oil everywhere. That's the way it is. Just let her go. You have to mess when you get done. If you're doing your own oil changes, you're going to have to be ready to get oil on yourself. That's just the way it works. Now you can mitigate the oilness by wearing gloves. I mean, it's going to be on the gloves anyways. Wipe it off. This is not on your hands if you're worried about that. I'm just doing it because it keeps oil out of the cuts, especially that burn I just got off the exhaust pipe because I forgot where it was and I put the oil pan underneath and burnt my hand. You can see the oil's draining. What we're probably going to do is we're going to let that continue to drain for a while. Move to the back bolt and get that out. Put the cover on this oil thing here. So I got the oil captured. Just let that drain. Move the camera in here and we'll see if we can get the other one loose and taken out. Which is also, like I said, a vertical one. I mean, I wish there was a way to say there's a way to do this clean, but there isn't that I've ever found anyway. Can't see where it's at. Okay, third bolt loose. And again, you know, there's going to be oil. Trying to deal with it. A lot of times we get some rags ready, you know. Take that last bolt out of there. Let the oil drain out of it again. Spike holds 4.9 quarts of oil. All the oil plugs are the same, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up or anything. They all have crush washers on them, aluminum crush washers. I don't know if you can see that crush washer right there. And the kit, if you order the kit from a Honda website of some sort, I can't remember where I got mine, I'll put the link below. I'll find it. You can actually buy a kit that comes with the crush washers, the oil filter, the O-ring that they use for the transmission cover, which we'll take off next, and even comes with the O-ring for that they recommend on that WingStuff.com website. It's a little bit smaller. There's actually a kit, and it'll even come with the oil filter wrench, which is handy. All right, so got that. Now, I think we'll do is we'll move this like that. We'll go after the 8mm bolts on the transmission cover. Put that free. I'll probably let this drain for about half an hour. I'll go inside so you can see what I'm doing here. And this is also going to be extremely messy. You'll get covered in oil when you take this lid off. Especially if you drop your socket in the oil, like I just did. Set the bolt aside. Grab the socket. Clean the oil off the socket because it's going to be slippery to hell. Okay. And you don't have to worry about it. This cover ain't just going to fall off most likely. It could, but that O-ring on it that makes it, oh no, it's going to come off. All right. So usually, last time that didn't happen. Last time I had to wiggle it out of there. Be careful when you hold this cover off, because there is a spring underneath it. I'll let that drain for a minute. Can't grip anything. Hands covered in oil. Glove. This has got to be the messiest oil change I think I've ever had on a motorcycle. My Harleys are, you get a little bit on you, but you don't do nothing like this. Bear with me. I'm gonna have to use the thingamajigger here. You can inspect this O-ring on this thing too. You might not have to replace it, but I'll be honest, with as easy as this came off there, I'm probably gonna replace it. Can't get the damn bolt out of there. It's so slippery. Let me grab the right kind of tool for the job here. Sometimes the specialized tools is handier than anything else. Like I said, there's a spring in there. I don't know if you can see it right there on the cover. It just fell out in the oil pan. Make sure you don't lose that. It actually holds the pressure. I got by one of those little jacks. Okay, that bolt off there, put that over here. Collect the spring. I say keep an eye on that spring, don't lose that. You need that to keep the filter in against the lid. And we'll put the lid over here as well. A little oily. So next thing is to get that filter out of the engine casing, transmission casing. They recommend you can use a magnet. Last time I tried that, it did not work for me. It'd be helpful, of course, if the bike was farther up in the air. Basically, you got a little filter in there. And they recommend that you use a magnet. The problem is getting the magnet on it. It's easier said than done. I got here is a little tiny magnet. Good force. That's a little magnet. I bought a little earth magnet. Very handy. That grabs the filter. Little cartridge filter right here. And we'll go over some things here in a moment, but you'll notice there's an O-ring right there. That goes up inside the engine, up inside the transmission. Do not get that backwards, or you won't be able to filter your oil and you'll be in a world of hurt on your transmission. We're gonna take our bolts and put them over here in the towel and let that drain. And I think what I'm gonna do is pull the oil filter off, and then we'll let this drain for about a half an hour or so. You don't need to let it do that, but I'm in no big hurry. It's a Sunday. I'm just chilling. I give a little extra time for the oil to get out of there. And we'll go from there. Well, magnet worked really good. Okay, last step. Pull the oil filter off and drain the oil out of that. I'm using a 17mm socket, little extension, and oil filter wrench that the kit came with that I bought. I'll try to get that on there so you have some part numbers. And you just, it's a little 1-inch extension, by the way, that I have on there. Put that on there and you turn your oil filter off. Usually you put an oil filter back on, usually you go hand tight. For this instance, because of what we're dealing with here, we're probably going to use the ratchet. We're just going to watch how tight we get it. You don't want to over tighten your oil filter. It can really cause some bad days. The oil filter wrench might bite on there pretty good. Just spin off the oil filter and let it fall. You're going to get oil again everywhere. It's just the way it is. Like I said, you're going to have to go with the fact you're going to oil on yourself. No other way around it. It'd be a little easier if the bike was a little higher up I mean, right now I'm on a lift, so it's not like it's sitting on the ground. But you could easily do this on the ground. I would recommend, personally, I think it'd probably be better to have one of those little jacks underneath it to jack the bike up. Not a motorcycle jack per se, but one of those little, well, it's a motorcycle jack, but it's for a lift. You can go right in the center, that way you can maybe get it up a little higher. I might buy one of those eventually to go in conjunction with my lift. Let's face it, the Honda Goldwing is a very low bike. So doing anything underneath is not exactly an easy task. But that's the oil draining. We'll just let her drip for a while. Let's clean some things up, and then we'll just let it drip for a while. Then we'll clean some of this up. We'll put the stuff back on. And it's basically in reverse. Then it takes 4.9 quarts of oil to fill it up back up. It uses the same oil from the crankcase, fills the transmission case, so you don't have to worry about that. We'll change our crush washers. They come with a kit. I'll show that. And we'll probably change this O-ring because it's probably about time. I changed it once already and didn't change it. So we'll put the new O-ring on. And the O-ring that I have with the kit in the WingStuff, it'll explain that. If you watch that video I linked in this video, is smaller than the one Honda sells for it. It's a fork seal that we're going to use, and it fits better and tighter. The other one people actually have had problem with leaks because the O-ring's a little bigger and it gets pinched. It's not because the O-ring won't seal it. It's because it gets pinched in between the aluminum casing and the cover, this cover. And that O-ring gets pinched in there, and all of a sudden you got a leak on your transmission. Now, regardless, you should be able to notice that right away and not having harmed your bike. But if you can do a different O-ring, take out that chance. It's a little better. Most O-rings, like I said, you could probably get by without it. You could probably just not change this if you really inspect it. And I'll be honest, this O-ring looks like it's in good shape. But since we have it, I'm going to install it anyways. Why not? So I'm going to come back, I'll finish this up in a little bit, and then we'll finish up this oil change. If we have time, we'll move on to the rear end change. Okay, so I have, this is the spring that goes in the filter. Let me show you that real quick. This is the inline cartridge filler for the transmission. You'll notice this side's rubber, has numbers on the top. This is what goes inside the casing. So this would be the bottom of your bike right here, where my middle finger's pointing. It goes up inside here like that. So pretend you're looking at this upside down. What this is, the spring sits in here. There's a dimple inside the lid here. That actually holds pressure on the filter to hold it into the bike. And the two screws screwed up in, so that spring presses that filter up where it belongs, where it's supposed to stay. And then this O-ring, which I've already replaced with the new O-ring, which is this part number here is what I'm using. It's not the part number it calls for, but the seal works better according to everybody else online, so that's what we're going with. It does fit real well. The old one is a little bigger. I can see how this could get pinched. But I cleaned everything. New crush washers on the oil plugs, all three of them. They're all the same. 2 8mm bolts are clean. Make sure there's no grit in the threads. Same with those bolts. And I cleaned the cover off. So what we're going to do is we're going to start putting this back together. So I'm going to do first, I'm going to coat this O-ring here, a little bit of oil, a little bit of fresh oil I got in the lid here. I want it to go up inside the engine casing without any problems. Nice clean oil. Try to keep it away from any kind of dirt. So just I'm going to coat that oil ring in there like so. That way it'll slide up inside the engine compartment a little better. I'm also going to do the same thing with this. Put a little oil filter on there, a little oil on it. Coat that. The better the oil is, the easier it's going to slide up into what it has the mating surface. That's the only reason I'm doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back inside the engine casing. I'm going to make sure it's clean first, which it should be. What we're going to do is we're going to take a little cartridge filter. Like I said, we got a few drips left. That is what it is. I'm going to shove that up inside there. Press it up, seat it. Rubber seal's seated, so it's not going anywhere. What we're going to do is we're going to put the spring. We're going to make sure we put the cover on right. This side was toward the outside of the bike. Put your spring on. You could probably also, maybe easier to put it inside the filter. Watch yourself, make sure it doesn't tip. Start threading the bolts back in. Want to make sure you don't let that spring fall out. Should be that bad. I'm not going to use a torque wrench on these. In the other guy's video, I do agree with him. You don't want to put too much torque on these little bolts. You can really be asking for a world of hurt once you try to start torquing down bolts that are not that big. You don't want to snap one of these off. Trust me on that. So I'm just going to screw those in there. A little bit on each side. I want it to cover up straight. Don't just do one side all at once, because you want to make sure you're even. And this is where you want to make sure that O-ring made it through right. That's why we oiled it up. Just make sure that it doesn't pinch. We don't want to leak. And you're going to want to do your due diligence to make sure you don't have a leak. Hopefully you don't. Snug those up like so. I'll go back to our ratchet. 8mm. What we're going to do is we're going to snug those down. Basically just wait for them to bottom out. You feel the bolt bottom out, like so. And do another quarter turn. So that should be tight enough. Just a little tiny aluminum cover. The O-ring and everything else does the work, so just make sure it's snug, and you want to make sure it's pressed down against the aluminum cover. Don't over tighten it. Same with these bolts. These are just 22 foot-pounds of torque for these engine bolts that are the engine bolts for the drain plugs. Get all those back in. And again, it doesn't matter what order you put them in, they're all the same. Screw them all in until they bottom out against the washer. Hand tight. You can do goes back there and snug them. Now, if you want to use a torque wrench, feel free. If you want to use a torque wrench, feel free. Personally, I don't use them on drain plugs. I have in the past, but there's just no reason to do it. I want to make sure it's snug, right? Turn like that quarter turn. Tighten it up. You can feel the crush washer. Quarter turn. Quarter turn. If you do want to throw a torque wrench on it just to double check, I'll show you what you'd have basically. Now, if you did want to use a torque wrench, it'd be 22 foot-pounds. See that? 22. 22. I'm probably a little over 22 right now. But that just shows if you wanted to, you could. 22 foot-pounds of torque. I don't think you really need to. I think you just need to watch what you're doing. Aluminum crush washer will crush getting your oil filter ready. For those who don't know, when you do the oil filter, you want to at least wet the ring. You also want to check, make sure the old one, the ring came off it. If no ring on it, we're good. I've had O-rings in the past come off on oil filters and stay on the engine. You don't want to double seal it. Not a good sign. So basically, I'm going to wet this down with oil. Just to make sure it's nice and sticky with brand new oil. Now, you don't have to put oil in the oil filter if you don't want to. The engines nowadays start up just fine without them. But for me and a lot of people that have done oil changes in the past, I guess I'm becoming one of the old timers. I like to put a little oil in it. I like to make sure it's got some oil in it on startup, so I don't have to do that extra little bit of work in the engine. And it'll suck it up in there, as you can see. Oil gets sucked up inside the filter. And again, you don't need to do this. one more thing, just makes you feel good, kind of. If you, I mean, the newer engines don't have the problem the older engines do, and you never, if it was a sidewalls filter, I mean, that would take care of it on its own, you wouldn't do it. But this isn't, this is up and down. Put it inside the oil filter wrench, thread the catch, spin it up in there. Usually, you just do a hand tight on an oil filter, but because you can't really get to it on this, I'm going to give it some turns. I'm just going to do a couple fingers and call that good. Got the filter off. Should be good to go. Now we just need to put 4.9 quarts of oil. Of course, we got some already inside the oil filter. So we'll put that filter aside, that quart aside. We'll do 4 brand new quarts, and then we'll use 1/10 the quart left on this. So 32 ounces would be about 4 ounces of oil left over. We'll use the Harley-Davidson funnel. I know, sacrilegious for me. Stick it in there. Just pour your oil in. Make sure your filter's clean, your funnel's clean first, though. And just start filling it up with oil. All right, check. So that should do it for the oil. Let's do a quick start up here in a second. Make sure our oil light goes off. So we'll have to get the bike started here real quick. We'll check it out. Make sure we don't have any oil lights on or anything like that. I want to fire it up here real quick and make sure that I don't have any leaks. And basically, when you fire this up, the engine oil light should go off automatically, almost instantaneously. That's the engine oil lights off. A little bit of a rumble when it started. We'll do a quick check, make sure we don't have any oil leaks. I'm not seeing any oil leaks at all. It looks nice and dry. As dry as it could be. I mean, considering we do have oil on the bottom of the bike. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a little blast of brake cleaner here in a second. So what I'm going to do is, real quick, while this is running, letting it run, I'm going to give this a little squirt of brake cleaner. Clean out the brake fluid and the oil. Well, that's the oil change in the Honda Goldwing 2018 plus Honda Goldwing DCT model. Oil level checked out just fine. The bike's on the lift, so it's set in level more or less. So I let it run for a little bit to make sure there's no leaks. Cleaned out the bottom of the engine with some brake cleaner, you probably saw, and shut it off. Checked the oil level. Everything looks good. I'll make sure I check it again. Obviously, I'm on the road, but that's all there is to it. It's not a whole lot to do an oil change on a Goldwing or any motorcycle, really, for that reason, that matter. Just take your time, watch what you're doing. I'm going to go inside and fill out my Blackstone Laboratories with the mileage and everything on the bike, miles on the oil, and go from there. Other than that, maybe do the rear end. I'm going to check the owner's manual or the service manual for when you're supposed to change it. I don't even think it's there yet. I might do it now. It's already up there, and I got the oil in the house, but we'll see how that goes. But until next time, this is Moose. You know what? Ride on. See ya.